If you are someone with big ideas, growing responsibilities, or multiple passions you want to pursue, this conversation is for you. Because building more does not have to mean feeling pulled in every direction. With the right structure, clarity, and intentional decisions, it is possible to grow in a way that is both sustainable and aligned with the life you want to create. Welcome to Biz Help For You, where passionate support and practical guidance help your business thrive. Today we're talking about what it really takes to manage multiple businesses and responsibilities while staying focused on what matters most. Joining me today is Kimberly DeShields-Spencer. In this conversation, we're discussing how to know which opportunities are worth pursuing, when to grow versus refine, the importance of discipline and structure, and how to move forward with greater focus and intention. So Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Candy, so much for having me. I look forward to being here today.
I'm glad to have you back too. It's been a long time since I had you on the show, but I thought with all the things that you've been doing now in recent years, of course, I know you, I go to your conference, I see all the things. And I thought I wanted to have you because there's probably a lot of people listening who are also trying to juggle multiple things at the same time. And so I would love for you to say, like, what was it that drew you to actually want to start all of these different things at the same time as well?
Honestly, for me, it's a combination of a couple of things because I think a lot of times when we start new things, they're usually birthed from maybe a situation or a problem that we encountered. So, like, since I've been almost 1920, I've had my core company, U Impact. And so we do a lot of marketing and branding with that. And many people don't realize that we still actually have that. We have, like I said, clientele for that. And in that, I started to see so many entrepreneurs, which I know you interview hundreds, many of them who would come in one way, but knowing their businesses weren't really the way that they said they were. And they were presenting something to the world that wasn't always really true to who they were. And so over time, I got tired of seeing that. And so Behind Her Brand was actually birthed from that, was let's tell some real stories of what people are really walking through in the hopes that we could support each other a little differently. Because along with that, I was always hearing women saying they felt alone. Women felt like, they were going to a ton of meetings and still feeling like they're building alone. And so, and not that we perfected it, but it's something that I really adamantly try to cultivate community. And so Behind Her Brand was actually birthed from that. It was like a book series for a number of years. And then I closed it. And then it was opened again as a magazine, but even in doing the books, it birthed another business. It was my publishing company. So from that came, it was kind of like organic. It wasn't something that I sat down and said, we needed these different things. When we did the Behind Her Brand book series, I had women that were like, could you help me publish? Could you help me do this? And I was like, I don't want to be a publishing company, but I can help you self-publish. So it birthed U Impact Publishing Group. And then as we were dealing all of that, oddly enough, COVID, when COVID hit, so Harvest was birthed from that, where I was just sending things just to encourage people. And they were like, could you do this for my family? Could you do something for this? And so it became a thing where our team was like, this is something that really fits us. We love to try to pour into people. So it became a subscription box service that just grew from one thing to serving regular everyday people, but also corporate. We had like Microsoft and different really cool companies that were reaching out for us to do different things. So in each of the settings, they were kind of birthed because they were each meeting a need that was being presented to us. And so it may sound like a lot, but it really was a kind of a seamless, just as we were building each one, it was like we're meeting a new need and integrating it, then meeting another new need and integrating that.
So you did have a lot of opportunities that came your way, but how did you decide, what specifically you're going to pursue instead of saying, well, I'm going to pursue every opportunity, I'm going to choose something very intentionally that I'm going to invest in to make sure it's actually worth the effort that you're investing into that, because it takes time away from other things, right? If you're going to start another business.
I think for me personally, everything is aligned to who I am. Like, I never want to pursue anything that is out of alignment. Like, even when I think of building with the marketing branding, I love being creative. I love helping people birth things, tell their stories. I love the whole aspect of all of that. So that's a good fit. Then when you look at Behind Her Brand, I love community, but I also love telling stories. I love supporting. So again, that's another fit. Same thing publishing, and the same thing with like pouring into people. So I only pursue things that keep me 100% in alignment with what my core values are, but also with what is really true to me. Like, I wouldn't get into And no offense, I love what you do, but it's so not me. Like bookkeeping, I would probably hurt somebody, and not that I'm bad with numbers, but like
Mhm.
all of the data and all of that kind of stuff, not my brain doesn't connect in that way. And so, and I actually had someone a long time ago ask me because they're like, well, you seem to be good with your stuff. That's my stuff. I couldn't do it for other people.
Mhm.
But I feel like if you stay in your lane and the things that really and truly fit you, you can grow things organically in a way that doesn't feel cluttered. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. Well, and lots of times people have great, these ideas too. And
Yeah.
sometimes people say, oh, it's that, shiny object that is going to distract you from other things or, squirrel or, there's all these kind of jokes out there too about things that can
Mhm.
distract you. Yet at the same
Yeah.
time, there can be some really great opportunities, to
Right.
expand. And we often hear too, you have to be growing. If you're not growing,
Yes.
then you're falling behind. So,
Hmm.
what would you say to someone who is thinking about, some other opportunities that they may have?
Hmm.
And when is it the right time to grow versus when is it the right time to just refine what you already have?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna start with the latter and go back. I think, in my opinion, one of the best ways to know is really you have to know your audience. You really have to understand even the industries you're in. Like I mentioned to you, we started Soy Published on COVID and it was booming. But when
Mhm.
the economy started shifting last couple of years and things were being really high priced, it didn't make sense for us to continue to do big boxes anymore. So we had to pivot to something totally different. And I had to recognize that people didn't have the same kind of resources. The price of materials were very different. And I've seen people that would still try to push it because they're like, well, no, I got to make it happen. But what ended up happening, they stopped being profitable and started going into the negative because they were still trying to keep a model that simply just no longer was working. And I find a lot of entrepreneurs will do that because it's like no one wants to admit that something no longer is working. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean failure, it just means you got to pivot. You got
Mhm.
to look at it differently. Or it may be this may not be the season to continue to pursue this thing. Let me put this down for this season. And maybe when things change, you can pick it back up again. So I
Mhm.
think you have to really be attuned to what's happening around you and not so much so committed to what your original thing was that you don't recognize the season may have changed. And I think
Right.
even with the growth on that side of it too, we had to look at when we started growing the different things that we're doing, especially with the companies we have. We looked at how are we going to grow in a way that still stays true to us. We have to make sure that even the opportunities and the things that come our way don't take us outside of where we are because sometimes you can grow and there could be major opportunities which we had a news station that was national and they wanted us to do behind her brand like on tour.
Mm.
It was not a good fit for us at all because we knew that we didn't have the infrastructure in place to handle the kind of demand that could potentially come in. And
Mhm.
even though we were growing, with magazine and everything, had we done that, Candy, and had like all of those, we were not ready for that. We could have hurt our brand. We could have not sent out things on time. It could have just been a mess.
Mhm.
And to some people that would have been like, oh, I would never turn that down. And we have people that tell us that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to ruin what we're building because we're trying to take on an opportunity that really wasn't a good fit. So I
Mhm.
always look at that too. Like I would encourage anyone, like, don't take anything on that if you know in your heart you're not ready for it with fear of, well, what if it doesn't come around again? It will always come back around again, maybe in different formats when you're in the right season to really accept that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a really good point too, because if you don't have systems in place or you don't have a team in place to support you, especially if you're going to be going to different areas,
Hmm.
it could really negatively affect you. And I know a lot of times people are thinking, oh, growth is really good, but don't look at that aspect of like, what is it going to take you to actually successfully
Yeah.
do that? And that's a really good tip to share because of
Yeah.
course, the dollar signs might be attractive to someone, but what is it really going to do in the long run if you take that and you're not prepared for it? Right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had to look at even, and I know you understand this 100%. We had to look at costs. Like if we had, to say an extra $10,000 of orders coming from magazine, well, that's printing costs. And if anybody knows printing, like that could be really interesting. And we were
Mhm.
still even building like our sponsorship. We are still building so much stuff that if I had said yes with the excitement of it, like I said, I could have really hurt everything that we were building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously we often have to balance to our family and
Mhm.
personal lives and business, and that could get even more complicated with so many different things that you're running. So how do
Yeah.
you execute that so that you can balance both? And maybe balance isn't the right word, but have the business that you are
Yeah.
running and still have a successful family life.
That for me is utmost. It's funny because people always assume because I do so much that I'm so busy and never have time for anything. But even before this, I was like went to breakfast with a friend. Like for me, I prioritize my family. I can never say the word right. My tongue gets tied, but make it a priority. My friendships and just people that want to connect. That for me is priority.
Mhm.
Because many years ago when I first started, I was a workaholic and all I did was work, and that was not healthy at all. So one of the things that I know that I do, and I do it faithfully like clockwork, I batch a lot of content. And I make sure, like, if I look at all the platforms and I'm like, okay, I got to post in all these different areas, I will spend usually about a week every couple of months, and I batch a ton of stuff. And I just make sure I'm recording, writing out my quotes, doing all the things that I like to do. And I make sure those things run systematically because in our home, it matters to us to have dinner together when our
Mhm.
sons come home. Like that is something I grew up with, and it's something that we do faithfully. I don't want to work all night long. I just
Mhm.
don't. I want to be able to watch a good Netflix and or just read my books and do whatever. And that wasn't the case when I first started. But I wasn't married at the time and didn't have kids. But when I did become married and have kids, I wanted that. I didn't want to be so busy. So,
Mhm.
like I don't do a lot of things on the weekends, like work wise, as much as possible. I really want that to be time that I'm hanging out with the kids or hanging out with my husband and doing some fun stuff. So I think that you have to determine what's priority for you. And like for me, that's my priority. And then I base everything around like our schedules, our trips, our things that really, matter to us. And then I fit in the business where it fits in.
Mhm.
And I believe you can run multiple things and still do that. I really do.
Mhm. It sounds like it's come down to boundaries too. And like I said, having
Yes.
those priorities and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to let this infringe on this. And that could be hard sometimes too, because as someone, when they start a business, thinks, well, I need to just at the beginning, when I'm investing time and effort, in the long run, it's going to pay off and then I won't work so much. Right. And then it's years down the line and they're still doing that. Right. So, any
Mhm.
tips for someone though who says, well, I do really want to spend more time with my family. I just don't know what I can do to extricate myself from being in the midst of all of this. So I do have
Yeah.
more family time.
Honestly, it's probably still kind of what I said, because I think that you have to make that determination that don't nurture that kind of belief system anymore.
Mhm.
I think we all, when we started back in the day, it was kind of like that work as much as you can so you can enjoy it later. But I know for me, I was burnt out and I
Mhm.
wasn't enjoying my work as much anymore because it was almost as if I gave my clients the permission to text me at 9 o'clock at night because I felt like, well, if I
Mhm.
don't respond back to them quickly, they're not going to think I
Right.
really care. And no
Mhm.
kidding, Kenny, I had people will call me at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have them text all night. And then if I did not respond to them really quickly, I created a culture within my company that was so unhealthy. It was like, well, you didn't respond back to me. And I'm like, you just responded to me. I mean, you just messaged me 3 hours ago. Give me a moment. And I started finding I was feeling frustrated because I was so hyper attentive, so hyper responsive, and all the things that it created this thing where they started thinking my team, and I had a much bigger team then too, that we all were going to be that way. And if they
Mhm.
didn't, then it's like, oh, you don't have good customer service because, you took 3 hours to get back to me, and it was like, okay. So for me, and if you're in that situation now, it's okay to tell clients, hey, I'm restructuring how I'm
Mhm.
showing up. And I did that. I sent out an email saying, we're changing some things up. This is our hours. And if you reach us after this time, we'll get back to you by tomorrow. And
Mhm.
I had to kind of retrain my clients and even retrain even my own self to say, let those boundaries stay. Because I still had the emergency text messages and I would look. And I got to the point now where I wouldn't even open up the text anymore because I didn't want them to see that I read it. And then they're like, wait a minute, you saw it. So I had to create hard boundaries with myself. And now I'm gravy. I mean,
Mhm.
people now don't even reach out to me as much in the evenings anymore. They'll message me on the following day, and I
Mhm.
respect that. So I would challenge someone, just respect your time. Don't become so tied to the work that you don't have time for yourself or your family.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
creating that discipline and structure in the business too, and having other people able to help you too is ideal as well too. So it doesn't all fall on you as well.
Yes. Yes. That's been a big game changer for me too. Like I believe in staying in my own lane and in the areas that I'm really good at and really outsourcing with my team, like what they're really good at. And also, I know, and I'm sure you probably had to deal with too, when you're running your own company, people tend to only want to go to you sometimes because they're like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to talk to you because you're the owner, but even in that, that's a trainable thing too, that you got to
Mhm.
train people to say, no, go here. And I'm good at that now. I'll redirect, go to this person
Mhm.
handles that. Because that also trains people, maybe trains the wrong word I should use, but it does teach your audience that you have a company, yes, you're the head, but you also have team and you got to
Mhm.
respect them and also, have those boundaries in that space too.
Mhm. I agree. I've had that, like you said, where when I first started, of course, it was just me, and I still have people who've been with me since, let's say, 2005, and I had maybe one or two employees, and they might have been part-time, and really, the people would reach
Yeah.
out to me all the time. And so sometimes people will still reach out to me, and now I'm saying, if you reach out directly to the person who already assists you with the bookkeeping or the payroll, they'll actually get back to you faster than I
Yeah.
will because I have so many other things on my plate.
Yeah.
And, I think just let them know the benefit too, because I think they feel, oh, if I'm talking
Mhm.
to the boss, right, I'm going to
Yeah.
have more attention.
Yeah.
But as we're trying to do all the things, we actually aren't as
Mhm.
successful at meeting your needs as the staff member
Yeah.
who's a dedicated employee to you.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. And that's something that, I'm grateful that we perfected that now, but it was a season of that. And I know, like, with your listeners, if people are like, you're in maybe regardless of stage you're in, if you're like, I don't want people to assume that I don't want to take care of them, they
Hmm.
won't think that. I think some people do naturally want to talk to the boss, but I like how you said it, like, you'll get a different quality of care of someone who's already worked on your case. They already know all the ins and outs and of it, so they can handle it differently than we could. Yeah.
Hmm. Exactly. So, what
Mhm.
are some signs that someone is becoming scattered instead of strategically expanding?
Ooh. I it's kind of like you mentioned, like this shiny ball syndrome before. I find when you can't complete things faithfully, when you're starting so many different things, or if you see something like, hey, post 5 times a day, so you're trying to do that really quickly, and then you read something else that tells you to do something else, so then you're switching to that, and you're not perfecting one thing that really and truly fits your brand.
Mhm.
You can do so many different things and not accomplish anything if you're not really clear on how. And I'm really big on this, on how your audience needs information from you.
Mhm.
Like, I don't post every day on my personal page, and some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I know that that wasn't a good fit for my audience. I've learned there's certain times a day that I should post. I learned there's certain type of content that people get more engaged with. And I think when you learn that, you kind of stay in that and you don't feel so like, I got to do all these different things.
Mhm.
Because I find, and I'm sure you know this too, when people are trying to do too many different things, it's always a sign that maybe things are not running right in your business, or you're
Mhm.
trying to generate results in a fast way. And sometimes in business, that just doesn't work that way. Consistency is always going to be key. Or you're trying to quickly, generate financial results and all type of things. Like, so if you're chaotic, I find that even your audience can feel that way. I can
Mhm.
always feel by people's posts when they're starting a new business every 2 weeks, or
Mhm.
when they have an offer every other day, or when they have like all these different things hitting you all at once. People can feel like it's just so much, and they're wondering, like, okay, what's going on? Because didn't she just do this last month, or didn't she already offer this? It becomes that, and you may not realize it. You're showing yourself a little bit more chaotic to the audience, your
Mhm.
audience, and then they tend to not buy. They
Sure.
tend to wonder what's going on. And you're not going to get the response you want had you kind of plan things out more strategically, so
Mhm.
that you can be more effective in what you're doing.
I wonder about that sometimes myself too. Obviously, our core, the services we do are the bookkeeping and payroll and compliance. But as you know, I'm also wanting to get the message out there too about the operational efficiency so you can take time away. And
Yeah.
I wonder about that sometimes too, is saying, well, I still have to teach or put
Right.
content out there to say, hey, I want to answer this question. Someone asked this, and I do that through the podcast or videos or different things too. But then I wonder sometimes, do people think like, oh, well, she's not going to do this now because she wants to talk about this, or I do talk about things different times in different ways.
Yeah.
So if there's someone similar to me who maybe has something like that too, where maybe they
Mhm.
had something as a core service and now they're adding something new, how do you go about actually presenting that so it doesn't feel chaotic and
Right.
people do want to use those different services?
But I think, like, in this, I'm gonna use you as an example, because I think the things that you're doing, especially with time freedom, is a good it might be a natural extension of what you do. You're
Mhm.
helping people learn about their bookkeeping, their cash flow, and making sure that things run, but also saying like, if you want to create more of that time freedom so you're not so tied to the day to day, here's something else that I'm offering. And I think that's
Mhm.
a perfect example in that it's a natural flow of what you currently do. But I think when I've seen some people like can say, oh, I'm doing marketing, branding, and oh, now I'm doing social media management. Oh, and I'm
Mhm.
also doing health and wellness and fitness, and
Okay.
not that you can't do different aspects of things that you
Mhm.
enjoy. I think it's all a matter of how you're communicating, which I don't think that that's always taught as well. How are you rolling out something new? How are you letting them
Mhm.
know that I'm doing this over here, but this is also another extension of what we're doing? And I think
Mhm.
when you roll things out in a way that is explains to the audience, I'm expanding, I'm
Mhm.
growing, I'm adding new legs to what I'm doing. They're like, okay, we see your growth, and then they tend to champion that versus it's just on the page.
Mhm.
And it's put out there. I'm doing this now because then it's going to lead to questions of, well, I thought you were doing this. Did this
Mhm.
change? And a lot of times they don't even ask you. They're asking themselves, and so they're confused. And
Mhm.
there's that whole sentence of confused buyers don't buy. So I think it's how you roll out the information and explain it to your audience. Like we're really big on that, like letting them know. Like we just finished a conference, and now we're getting ready to segue into our program for our young girls. And then we're also doing a retreat in San Diego for business women in September. So we're going to start rolling things out very slowly, so that people know that we're still doing different things, but it's just how we communicate that so it doesn't feel too on the heels of everything
Mhm.
else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. So then if someone is listening and they do feel overwhelmed because they have too many ideas, too many
Yeah.
responsibilities, too many unfinished projects, what is one practical step that they can take this week to regain focus and momentum?
Look at all your different ideas and ask yourself what is one thing that you know that you can do right now that will give you the immediacy that you probably are looking for. Maybe that's an event, maybe that's recording your first episode, whatever that thing that can give you that first, like, I accomplished that and that is completed. I would say do that. The second thing I would add also is when you're looking at everything, ask yourself, are these the things that I have to implement in this season?
Mhm.
Do they have to be implemented right now? Because I have a million ideas, Candy. I always have so many ideas. But I know that like, for example, like some ideas I wouldn't implement in the summer, but I may do them, oh, next fall, I want to do this. That's another thing too. Sometimes we don't segment our thoughts. We don't
Mhm.
segment our ideas. Something may not be a business. It may just be an offering. It may just be a one-time thing.
Mhm.
I think even doing that this week can help you kind of visually see that you can accomplish different things and implement different things, but in the right season, in the right time.
Mhm. And I
Yeah.
feel sometimes too, as entrepreneurs, when we start our businesses, we don't know all the things we should or shouldn't be doing, and we don't
Right.
always know the best way to implement something too. So I would think potentially if someone is just feeling completely overwhelmed and unable to really look and determine what that is, potentially talking to someone who can help them with that too, and determine
Yeah.
what can you do now, what would be an efficient use of your
Hmm.
time, right? So
Yeah.
have you done that in the past too, where you actually sat down with someone who helped guide you, or what would you recommend for someone in that situation?
Oh, I think that's always a healthy thing to do. I would definitely reach out to someone that you really respect, someone that you've seen what you want to model.
Mhm.
I've done that throughout my entire career, honestly. There's people that I really respect and how they handle business. I see them and how they handle their families and all the different things. And I like that. So there's been times where I'm like, okay, I would love to reach out their insight on maybe there's an area of my business that I want to expand on. Or even like, the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot more videos. That's not something I ever wanted to do. I am very
Mhm.
introverted. I love behind the scenes and would love to live there if I could. But,
Mhm.
being in marketing and branding, I had to assimilate, but I had to find how to make that work. And I reached out to an incredible mentor of mine that says, how can I still stay true to myself and enter into this world that I have to be more public?
Mhm.
So I think it's always healthy to have the people that you can kind of bounce ideas off that you've seen a proven history with them. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I know we're just scratching the surface of what we could talk about on this topic, but I know we're coming to the end of the time that we have together. So I wanted to ask, do you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners? And if someone wants more information from you, how can they contact you?
Well, behindherbrand.com. We're pretty much on every platform from LinkedIn to Instagram. And in terms of offer, we have our magazine that goes out 6 times a year. And it's when we first started, it was more feature driven, but it's actually less now. It's more articles about business development, career development. I think it's a really good tool. It's been growing rapidly. And so that's probably my offers, like hop on our website and take a look at the magazine. Even if you're not a big magazine person, we find that sometimes you might be surprised by the content of the magazine. So I would encourage you to at least get one issue and see what you think. Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you for being here today, Kimberly. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad I got to have you on the show again, to
Yes.
go over this aspect of kind of what you're doing currently now, and you being able to share your insights with the audience, talking about what intentional growth really looks like. And I really appreciated your perspective on knowing when to refine versus constantly expanding. So thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
And to the listener, thank you for tuning into the show today. I hope this conversation helped you think differently about growth, priorities, and how to move forward with greater clarity and intention instead of overwhelm. And if this episode encouraged you, be sure to share it with someone who's building something meaningful in their business or life as well. And if you want to hear additional content, be sure to check out the resources information in our show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help For You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.